Even though Tanya now lives in Sylvania, she still often sends letters to her father, to my dad whom I respect the most, because dad often spends time in the royal capital. It has become my routine to let dad know about my life through letters, although this time it was different. The letter was from Sylvania Academy, not from the Roth-Taylor residence, since it was my first time living away from home. There were many unfamiliar aspects, but as a member of the Roth-Taylor family, I would not forget my honor. Despite Sylvania's unique egalitarian atmosphere and rather demanding study schedule, I'm slowly getting used to it. I think I can even call some of them classmates, or even friends now. The target that I confidently told Dad the day I left home, which is to become the youngest student council president, is also progressing step by step, although there are rumors that Princess Phinia, whom people love, might run for election, making me a little worried. I'm determined to see this through to the end. I also met Senior Lortel, and although our ages are not far apart, she seems very perfect as a merchant. The negotiations for the purchase of the Sage's Scroll will begin soon, and I'm already feeling nervous whether I'm worthy of representing our family. Also, this is a difficult topic to talk about, but because Dad no longer recognizes him as family, there's no need to explain that he is indeed a stain and disgrace to our family. Simply put, Big Brother seems to be very diligent and responsible. It feels like he's become a completely different person. To be honest, I used to be too young to remember much, so this might be my exaggerated assumption. Recently, I had a strange dream about my childhood. It happened on the small hill behind our residence, the place where lilacs and daffodils bloom in spring. I remember walking up the hill, following the fragrant path. Each of my hands was held by two people on both sides. The hand on one side must be Sister Arwen's hand, then, the strong hand on the other side must be Dad's right. When Arwen's sister was alive, Ed's brother didn't seem to be a severe troublemaker, so, maybe he didn't turn over a new leaf, but returned to his original identity. This is a night full of many complex thoughts. Your daughter who always loves Dad, Tanya Roth-Taylor. After reading the letter sent by his daughter, Crefin then took out a knife with a sinuous blade. The knife has been coated with the inscription of deadly venom, a poison that even the smallest touch can cause excruciating pain, and ultimately death. While throwing away the letter and handing the knife to his subordinates, Crefin then said, "A reply message has been sent to Tanya, with her responsibilities in the Student Council President election, the upcoming negotiations with Lortel for the purchase of the Sage's Scroll. It seems that she is overwhelmed with taking care of everything herself, so, Crefin decided to send trusted help to help her." Normally, sending help from family to Sylvania is not allowed. However, since it is for business, the Academy has given permission. After saying that, Crefin then told his subordinates to leave. Hearing that, they then both left the room and went to carry out their mission. After a moment of silence, Crefin then opened the gloves covering his hands. When the gloves were opened, there's a blood-red hand with an open eye on its back. Crefin looked uncomfortable when he saw his own hand. He could never get used to this. Crefin then grasped a kind of black pearl with his hand and used supreme-level magic, certainty of causality. The magic allowed him to get a glimpse of the results of certain actions or variables he performed. Right when Crefin used the magic, a very powerful mana surge then occurred. Crefin was not really surprised to see that. He thought it was natural if the magic power he needed was this big. He also regretted not being able to use it too often. However, this was truly an absolute power. By using this magic, before a critical event occurred, one could verify the result of the cause performed, thus resulting in an inevitable end. In the Black Pearl, a very tragic scene was then seen, the scene when Ed's body was stabbed by a knife by an unknown person. Ed vomited a mouthful of blood due to the stabbing, and Janica, who witnessed it, then ran over while screaming hysterically. Her screams then became louder when she saw Ed falling to the bottom of the cliff. Janica then tried her best to reach his hand, but she then could only helplessly watch him fall deeper, amidst the rain that fell on her. With a heart filled with anger, Janica then looked back. That very ferocious gaze could be clearly seen from the Black Pearl that Crefin was holding at this time. After witnessing all these things, Crefin felt that this was not a very pleasant feeling, but he felt that this sacrifice was necessary. 3 days before Ed's death, the sky above Sylvania looks very clear today. The Student Council President election is about to start. Tanya is really feeling desperate at the moment, because she just got the news that Phinia is also running for Student Council President. Princess Phinia is famous not only among the royal family, but also in the entire Klol Empire. Almost everyone knows her name. If Princess Phinia really decides to run for student council president, even if there are unexpected events that appear, Tanya realizes that her chances of winning will still be zero. This is what makes her depressed at the moment. This is also what makes her finally realize that reality and dreams are two very different things. This is indeed disappointing, but she thinks she should abandon her hopes. In the midst of her depression, someone suddenly approached her at this time. It was Zix. Zix asked, "Are you about to leave for elemental study training?" Tanya was a little surprised by his sudden question. Zix asked again, "Is there anyone who often disturbs you during class lessons?" He also invited her to have tea with Aika sometime. Seeing Tanya talking so intimately with Zix, Kylie and her two friends wondered, "Isn't that Senior Zix? Isn't he one of the strongest people in the academy?" They were amazed to see Tanya could exchange greetings with him, and when Tanya was walking towards the dormitory, Lortel, who saw her, then greeted her. She said that she planned to arrange a negotiation meeting regarding the Sage's Scroll transaction. She told her to tell her about the right time. Later she would choose a place for their meeting. Seeing Lortel, who also greeted Tanya, they wondered, "Isn't that Senior Lortel?" They were amazed to see that Tanya had just been greeted by the original owner behind the Elt store, but that wasn't what surprised them the most. As they continued to walk towards the dormitory, they then met Lucy, who also greeted Tanya. Seeing her, they wondered in shock, "Isn't that person the greatest genius of Sylvania, Senior Lucy Merrill?" They were also surprised when they saw that she could talk. They were really amazed at Tanya at this time. Obviously Tanya had a much different level of connections. They felt that Tanya was really impressive. She was graceful and well-networked. But she wasn't showing off. She was really cool. They even went so far as to wish that they could emulate a bit of her attitude. Tanya blushed when she heard their praise. While smiling broadly at them, Tanya then said that they worked well today. She was sure it must be tiring. She then allowed them to go and rest in their respective rooms. If they continued to hone themselves every day, she was sure they could definitely become great students. She also invited them to work hard again tomorrow. Hearing that, they then said that they would continue to work hard tomorrow and the next day, so that they are reliable and as elegant as Tanya. After Tanya was finally alone, she then confusedly wondered what happened. She felt like her status and reputation in the academy had skyrocketed since the last few days. She was really confused at this time, because she didn't even do anything. If she could guess the reason for this increase in her reputation, it must be because she was the younger sister of her famous brother. Tanya then squatted while covering her face when she came to that conclusion. She always thought that her brother was a failure, but why now she even felt like she was the one who failed? Tanya was really confused. How did the situation become like this? In the midst of her musings, she was then surprised when she heard a knock on the door of her room. Right at that moment, the door of her room suddenly opened, and two middle-aged men then appeared in her view. The two middle-aged men smiled happily when they saw her. They were happy to see her again after so long. They were also happy to see her okay. Tanya was shocked when she saw the two middle-aged men. They were Caden and Knox. Seeing the arrival of the two of them, Tanya feels like her father still pays enough attention to her. She also felt happy to see the two of them after a long time. Caden said that he heard that she had worked a lot in her studies. He was glad that they could finally help. Caden said that he would collect market information about the negotiation of the Sage's Scroll, as well as details about the budget status of the Elt store, so that she could negotiate smoothly. Hearing that, Tanya then thanked him. Knox also said that he would help coordinate her schedule of the student council president election, so that she could focus on her studies. Based on the rumors about Princess Phinia running, Knox said he could gather details about the policy proposals that might be given by her camp, but Tanya said that it was not necessary. She then pondered for a while and said that there was a new announcement this morning. The announcement explained that Princess Phinia would not run for student council president. Ed, who had just heard the news, was then shocked. He was currently sitting with Janica while drinking a cup of tea. Janica explained, apparently, this morning the royal secretary announced it officially on behalf of the royal family. Hearing that, Ed asked, if it was just announced, that means she can still change her mind, right? Ed is really dizzy at the moment. The final boss in Act 4, Crefin Roth Taylor, is famous for taking care of things perfectly. Everyone knows him as the generous patriarch of the Roth-Taylor family, but only Princess Phinia can feel his dark side. With the scope of power over the kingdom and the academy, Princess Phinia will be the most reliable partner. In the confrontation with Crefin, while she was still eyeing the Sylvania Academy, the situation should have gone that way, but now, Ed was confused over her decision not to run, while Ed was deep in thought. Janica suddenly approached him, with a sullen face. Janica then said, "I think I'm starting to understand what's going on here." Ed could only feel confused and surprised by that. Janica said that she had this premonition again, a premonition that Ed would do something rash. Hearing that, Ed was then about to answer, but did not give him the opportunity to speak further. Janica then said that she could not stand by and watch Ed get hurt again while not knowing anything. She would not let that happen again. With a serious face, Janica then said to him, "You have been through a lot, there is no need to make things difficult for yourself. If you plan something, whatever it is, I will help you." Ed was silent for a moment hearing that. He then told her, "To be honest, I really feel that Princess Phinia will be a good student council president." Janica was then surprised to hear that. She was surprised to hear that Ed was supporting Phinia. She then asked, "She has treated you quite harshly, right? Plus, since Tanya is your sister, I guess you might support her. But if the princess herself doesn't want to run, what can we do? If only we knew the reason." In the middle of their moment of togetherness, Zix suddenly came at this time and said, "There are many people watching." He also asked, "Isn't this afternoon a little too warm?" Hearing that, they then surprisedly looked in his direction. Zix apologized for disturbing their time together. He said that he thought he knew the reason why Princess Phinia didn't want to run. Janica blushed when she heard the words too warm and time together from Zix earlier. She felt it was a strange phrase. Zix continued, regarding Princess Phinia not wanting to run, it was like a lone alpha wolf, the leader of the pack who once made a decision that endangered the pack, and now didn't even react when an arrow was pointed at it. It was the look he saw in Princess Phinia's eyes, as if she lost all her confidence and couldn't act anymore. After saying that, Zix then told them that he would stop bothering and leave. He also told them, tomorrow should rain for the first time in a long time. He asked them to keep that in mind when leaving the dormitory. Ed didn't feel bothered by his disturbance at all. He also thanked him for the information. Zix's animal intuition was far beyond the 5 senses of ordinary people, so Ed thought that it was a reliable guess. After hearing Zix's assumption earlier, Ed concluded, the worst-case scenario was Princess Phinia lost all her hostility to the Roth-Taylor family. Ed was confused about what he should do, but he was then surprised when Janica suddenly said that this was a good opportunity. With a radiant face, Janica explained, if it was going to rain, it was the right environment to practice with water spirits. It would be great if it was near the sea, so Janica decided to try to summon intermediate spirits on the northern coast tomorrow, after the elemental study class. Ed was silent for a moment hearing that. He then smiled slightly. He thanked her. For now, he decided to focus on what he could do. While Lucy was taking a nap on top of Ed's cabin, she suddenly smelled something. She wondered if it was going to rain. Not only Zix, Lucy could also feel it. She suddenly thought of something at this time. She then immediately went downstairs and headed to the wood near the campfire, with beef jerky in her mouth. Lucy then snapped her fingers. Right at that moment, a fire then lit up from the campfire. As Lucy fell asleep next to the fire, Ed appeared. Shortly after, he didn't disturb Lucy who was sleeping and walked to the cabin. He was grateful that spring had finally arrived, but the rain made it more difficult to go outside. The rain that drenches the whole body always makes Lucy sad. If it was going to rain, he hoped it would pass soon. It's been some time since the first drizzle of rain fell. Ed then arrived at the northern coast as Janica had mentioned. He seemed to be quite unfamiliar with the environment there. Mug said that this was his first time going to the northern coast. The cliff area is vast, but barren and uninhabited. There is not much to see, and the distance is also quite far, but there is no better place to practice in summoning water spirits than here. If he can be frank as a low spirit, the contract with intermediate water spirit Miss Raisha is a good choice. Seeing Ed who suddenly took out a bow, Mug didn't expect him to even consider using it with magic arrow, but Ed suddenly told him to be quiet. Ed then pointed his bow at the 2 mysterious people who came. Seeing that, they didn't feel panic at all. They then greeted him. It's an honor to meet you again. The 2 mysterious people turned out to be Caden and Nox. They seem to have bad intentions at the moment. They play the role of mid-boss Phase 3 in the final chapter of Act 4, Creffin Suppression Battle, Creffin's loyal subordinates. They are responsible for taking care of all the problems in the shadows for the Roth-Taylor family.